So let's talk about a man who didn't just play music. He turned it into a weapon. We're diving into the life of Fela Kuti, the Nigerian icon who built a revolutionary movement, note by note, using his sound to take on dictators and, really, to try and wake up a whole continent. This quote right here, it just nails it. Fela's legacy isn't about platinum records or anything like that. It's about being this enduring symbol of truth for anyone, anywhere, fighting against oppression. It really sets the stage for the absolute giant of a figure we're about to get into. So who was this guy really? Well, Fela was a whirlwind, a total storm of contradictions. He was a musical genius, a political firebrand, an icon, and, maybe most importantly, a constant, sharp thorn in the side of Nigeria's powerful elite. I mean, you can't just put this guy in one box. He literally invented a whole genre of music, Afrobeat. But he was also the self-appointed voice for millions of suffering people, a sharp-tongued social critic, a dreamer of a united Africa, and yeah, famously, the #1 enemy of Nigeria's military rulers. But here's the thing, to really get the rebel, you have to look at where he came from. And Fela's journey, it didn't start on the streets. Nope, it began right inside the very establishment he would spend his life trying to tear down. Fela was born into Nigeria's upper-middle-class elite. Think about that for a second. The man who became the voice of the poor came from the world of the privileged. And that's absolutely central to his story, because he knew the system from the inside out, which made his attacks on it so much more devastating. And looking at his family, you can see it was all there from the start. Music and rebellion were just in his blood. His grandfather was a composer, his dad a major figure in education, and his mother? Wow. His mother was Funmilayo Ransome Kuti, a legendary feminist and anti-colonial activist. With a family tree like that, is it any surprise Fela was destined to shake things up? You can literally track his evolution. In the late 50s and early 60s, he's in London, studying classical music and playing pretty standard high-life tunes about love and stuff. But then, 1969 happens. He tours the US, gets totally radicalized by the Black Power movement, and it changes everything. He comes back a new man, renames his band the Africa 70, and it wasn't just a new name, it was a declaration of war. So, with this new fire in his belly, Fela didn't just write a few angry songs. No way. He created an entirely new sound, a genre that was designed from the ground up to be a political weapon. And the result was Afrobeat. It's this incredible, powerful fusion. You take the big, bold horns from American funk, you mix in the edge of psychedelic rock, and you lay it all on top of these deep, complex African rhythms. It was a sound that nobody had ever heard before. Let's break that down for a sec. You've got the irresistible groove of funk and soul, the trippy guitars of rock, the ancient power of Yoruban drumming, which he pioneered with the legendary Tony Allen. And here's the masterstroke. He sang his political lyrics in Pidgin English, the language of the everyday person on the street. It meant his message hit exactly who it was meant for. And his transformation was total. He even changed his name. He got rid of the colonial part, ransom, and took on Anikulapo, which means he who carries death in his pouch. Basically, he was declaring himself the master of his own fate, somebody who wasn't afraid to die for his beliefs. And his music took aim at very specific targets. He wasn't fake about it. His song Zombie was a direct shot at the Army's blind obedience. ITT stood for International Thief, and it called out corrupt corporations. Yellow Fever attacked the colonial idea that lighter skin was better. He used his music, what he called yabis, or abuse singing, to name and shame the powerful. So, as you can probably imagine, the Nigerian government was not a fan of being called out so publicly and so brilliantly. Fela's defiance was about to come at a terrifyingly high price. See, Fela wasn't just hiding in his studio. He had his nightclub, the Shrine, which was basically his political stage. And he declared his home, his commune, to be the Calacuta Republic, an independent state right in the middle of Nigeria. To the military government, this was an act of rebellion they simply could not let stand. It all came to a head in 1977. Fela publicly slammed the government during a big arts festival. Just 1 week later, 1,000 soldiers surrounded Calacuta. They stormed the compound and they just unleashed hell. Fela was beaten nearly to death, women were assaulted, and his 77-year-old mother, the great activist Funmilayo, was thrown from a first-floor window. She died from her injuries a few months later. And the government's response? An official inquiry that blamed the whole thing on an exasperated and unknown soldier. It was a complete sham, just a chilling display of absolute power. But you can't silence a man like Fela. He took all that pain, all that rage, and he poured it right back into his music. This lyric from his song Sorrow, Tears, and Blood, it speaks directly to the brutality that normal Nigerians faced every single day. It wasn't just his pain anymore. He made it the nation's. Fela's story doesn't just end with him as a victim, though. Not at all. It's a story of incredible defiance, but it's also a story with deep, undeniable complications that we have to talk about to understand his legacy. And we gotta be honest about the whole man here. On one hand, you have the rebel who spoke truth to power, but on the other, you have the ruler of his own commune, who could be pretty authoritarian himself. He was the champion of the poor, yet he faced serious accusations of misogyny. He fought against dictators, but often acted like he himself was above any law. And yet, despite all of it, all the contradictions, look at this number. Over 1 million people showed up for his funeral in 1997. Let that sink in. This wasn't a farewell for just a musician. This was for a hero, a president they never had, who, for all of his flaws, had fought their battles. In the end, he was just too big to be one thing. And these nicknames people gave him, they tell the story. Son of a witch for his mother's incredible power. The strange creature because he refused to be normal. The chief priest for his spiritual side. And of course, the one that stuck, the black president. So we're left with this question, right? Fela Kuti was without a doubt a musical genius and an incredibly courageous freedom fighter. He was also a deeply, deeply flawed man. Can both of those things be true at the same time? And how do we weigh the legacy of a hero who is anything but perfect? That's the challenge Fela's incredible life leaves for all of us.